Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 383. This is our week one NFL picks against the spread podcast for the 2022 NFL season. I've been waiting for this for a long time, so I'm excited to break down the games this week. Joined once again by Jacob Camenker from the Sporting News. Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing great. I am so ready for week one of this season. I am excited for it. You and I were talking just before we started here, and it sounds like we both like this week's slate. So, hopefully we can get off to a good start this year. I know last year, week one was a big disappointment for us because it sort of kickstarted the bad beats we got all year long. So here's hoping, fingers crossed, that won't happen again.
Yeah, we finished last year very strong, so I'm hoping that can carry over into week one of this season. But yeah, we like the slate a lot, and hopefully we agree on a lot of these picks. I'm sure we'll have some disagreements, and those are always fun. But I think it's a good sign when we agree on a lot of the picks. So I guess we'll start off in a second. Before we do, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. You can get a Walter football shirt. As you can see, if you're watching YouTube, I'm wearing a limited edition gray Walter football shirt. We're making like 10 billion of these, so you get them while you still can. They're gonna run out before you know it. So all right, the Thursday night game, it's in about 50 hours. It's the Bills at the Rams. This line opened up Rams -1. That's what it was back in May when we discussed the look ahead, our preview for week one. Now it's Bills -2.5. So we've had 3.5 point movement. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like the Bills a lot as a team, but I like the Rams in this game. If this got to +3, I would be pretty happy about it. As it stands, I will still be betting the Rams. In some ways, I was torn about this game because, the Rams have some concerns. They're replacing 2 offensive line starters, including Andrew Whitworth, who is, a stalwart for 15 plus years in the NFL. And then Matthew Stafford has that elbow injury. And you never like backing an injured quarterback. It always seems to backfire badly. The thing is, we haven't seen him play at all, so it's hard to assess how injured he is. And there are conflicting reports. It sounds like it's going to be a maintenance thing. So, yeah, that concerns me season long. But I think at this stage of the season, it won't concern me enough. I think when you look at the Rams, Sean McVay is one of the best coaches in the NFL. You could argue that he is the best coach right now. He is the youngest coach in the NFL and has been for 6 years, which is mind-blowing. But he just knows how to get the most out of his team, and he's had extra time to prepare for this game. And I know Sean McDermott's not a bad coach by any means either, but McVay with extra time to prepare could be lethal. So I think so long as he's not going up against an Andy Reid or Bill Belichick, McVay has the advantage in that scenario 10 times out of 10. And I think the Rams defense, it's not a slouch, so it can slow down Josh Allen. Jalen Ramsey will take away one of his big receiving weapons, and whether that's Gabe Davis or Stephon Diggs, if you can just make Josh Allen have to focus more on one side of the field or throwing to Dawson Knox or over the middle in the slot, I think that'll at least slow down the Buffalo offense. And I think the Rams, a lot of people think they're going to come out with the Super Bowl hangover. They've got the injured quarterback. Why would we back them? But they're underdogs at home in this game after they just won a Super Bowl. So I think that's going to motivate them to be like, why are we underdogs here? Or like, why do people not expect us to win this game? And I think that's going to really motivate them. They've got the Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald types who hate being slighted and have been during their careers. So, yeah, I like the Rams to win this one. So at +2.5, I like them for 2 units. The thing that stands out to me too is that this line has gotten to Bills -2.5, but it has not crossed the Bills -3, which leads me to believe that sportsbooks want the money to keep coming in on the Bills, and they're afraid that if they move it to +3, the sharps might crush the Rams and say, hey, we're getting the field goal, that key number here. And if they know the public's going to keep backing the Bills at -2.5, they won't move it unless they have to. So that's the other thing to consider here. So I like the Rams here. They're 11-8 as an underdog under McVay. So there's no reason to be too scared of them, even though they have a couple concerns coming into this matchup.
Yeah, we're gonna agree right off the bat. I like the Rams a lot. You said 2 units. I think I'm on them for 3. Just like them a little bit more. I think that in addition to what you said, I agree with everything you said. Like the huge disrespect factor here for the Rams coming off the Super Bowl win. And they have a lot of veterans. It's not like they lost Stafford and they have to start John Wolford. Like, then I would understand them being home underdogs to even the Bills. So I think the Bills are the best team in the NFL, but still, the Rams are arguably a top 5 team. And so for them to be home underdogs, it's a huge like slap in the face. And I think that they're going to come out and like be very energized and motivated more so than they usually would be coming off a Super Bowl win. So I think they're going to try very hard in this game. And like I said before, if Stafford retired and this is John Wolford starting, the Wolf Lord, yeah, you could say, yeah, the Bills should be favored. But it's mostly the same guys returning. I know Von Miller's gone and he's on Buffalo. Whitworth's gone, but the Rams they won the Super Bowl without Whitworth last year during their playoff run. So I don't think that's as big of a deal. Miller is, but the Rams still have a great defense, and they should be able to slow down Buffalo just enough. And the Bills are missing. They're still going to be missing Tre'Davious White, who's on the PUP list. Khair Elam is their other cornerback. He's a big question mark because he's a rookie. So I think the Rams have a big advantage at cornerback. So what I was getting at, like, I agree with everything you said. In addition to that, you have also the circadian rhythms benefiting the Rams. The night game for the West Coast on the West Coast, it's usually helps them a little bit. So that's another factor. And you mentioned Sean McVay having a lot of time to prepare. I love betting on great coaches with that factor. Do you know the last time McVay did not cover in week 1?
I don't, but my guess is probably his first season, right?
Oh, he's never not covered in week 1. He's 5-0 against the spread in week 1. So I don't see why the Rams couldn't win outright. I mean, like I said, I think the Bills are the best team in the NFL, but I'm sure you agree, and obviously you do because you took the Rams, but do you see the Bills going 17-0? I don't. Like, I think they're probably going to go 14-3, maybe even 15-2, possibly 13-4, like something in that range. And this is one of their toughest games on the slate. So I think that they're probably going to lose this game, especially with the Rams being extra motivated.
Well, we've seen this in recent years too. We saw it last year with the Chiefs. They came out of the gate really slow. They were, I think, 3-4, 4-4 out of the gate, despite being the AFC favorite coming into the year. And they strengthened up down the stretch and were a true contender in the playoffs. The Bills, I don't think they'll take a similar approach, but that's just to say that elite teams can still take time to gel, even when they've had a lot of success like the Bills have had recently. So I'm pretty confident that the Bills are not going to go 17-0 this year, as crazy as that would be. I just think there's too many other talented teams that will give them trouble. And you made a good point about the cornerbacks. Without Tre'Davious White, their starters are small too. I think Dane Jackson's like 5'11", maybe even smaller than that. And Khair Elam's not the biggest guy. So Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson are bigger. And so they're going to be able to take advantage of that height mismatch there. And Tyler Higbee across the middle. So I think the height advantage will help them in that aspect of this battle too.
Yeah, good point. Andrew commenting, Walt, they had a push in 2019 against the Panthers. I believe the push was on an earlier line, but the closing line the Rams covered. I think the line moved enough for that. So, all right, let's get to the Sunday games. And the first one is Ravens at the Jets. This line opened up Ravens -5. It's all the way up to 7. It sounds like Joe Flacco is going to start this game. It's not official, but I think it would be a surprise if Zach Wilson started. So with that in mind, who do you like here?
Yeah, I love the Ravens here. I wrote that we're either going to get the Joe Flacco revenge game or the Zach Wilson is slightly injured but is coming back early to take on a top-tier AFC team. But either way, the Ravens are the right side here. I know Baltimore lost its season opener in overtime to the Raiders last year, but before that, it had won 5 consecutive week 1 games. And in its last 4, they had won by an average of 36.25 points per game. So what does this all mean? Well, it means that Baltimore, 1, is a good team. And 2, John Harbaugh is pretty dominant with extra time to prepare, especially against poor teams, because the teams that they played in those games were the Bengals, Bills, Dolphins, and Browns. And I know those are all good teams now, but when the Ravens played them, they weren't truly contenders at that time. And they were more on the side of like, oh, these are probably a top 10 pick in the draft type team. I think that's where the Jets are right now. No one's going to argue with that. They have upgraded their roster a bit. Their defense should be a bit better. They've added some nice talent at corner with DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner, and I like what they've done with their secondary. Their pass rush should be healthier, but there is still holes there, and especially at the linebacker core, which is a massive problem for this team because Lamar Jackson is going to be able to run like crazy all over those linebackers. And when he's not running on them, he's going to be throwing to his tight ends against them because we're talking about, LaMarcus Joyner is going to be helping out in coverage at safety, and he's started to regress a bit. Jordan Whitehead is good, and that should help him out. But you're talking Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely against the Jets linebackers, and the Jets linebackers also have to account for the run game and Lamar Jackson running. It's just a recipe for disaster on that side of the ball. And then on the opposite side, you look at the Ravens defense, and it's very strong. And whoever the Jets play at quarterback, Zach Wilson will struggle. He's not gotten off the struggle bus yet. Joe Flacco might look good in the first half. I could see that happening, but the Ravens defense is much healthier than it was last year. They have Marlon Humphrey back. They have a lot more talent than the Jets. The Jets just can't keep up with them, even if Flacco plays a good first half. I think the halftime adjustments would eventually catch up to him. So this just screams Ravens blowout to me. Maybe it won't be by the 36.25 point average, but it should certainly be by more than 7 points. I see a double-digit victory. I think it's going to be a rough start to the year for the Jets. So I'm on the Ravens for 2 to 3 units, banking on Harbaugh's experience, extra time to prepare, and just his ability to blow out bad teams in those scenarios.
Yeah, I think it'll be closer to the 36 than the 7. So I'm with you on the Ravens as well. John Harbaugh, 10-4 against the spread in week 1 as the Ravens head coach. So, yeah, like you were saying, great coaches with extra time to prepare, always a good angle to take. And I like all the matchups for the Ravens. The thing the Jets are going to do the best defensively is rush the passer with Carl Lawson back, and they got Jermaine Johnson. But the Ravens, they get Ronnie Stanley back from injury. He's only played 5 games in the past 2 years, maybe 7, something like that. But he hasn't been healthy for a while, and now he's going to be on the field. You would think close to 100%. And they have Morgan Moses on the other side, so I feel like they should be able to hold the Jets pass rushers at bay and give Lamar Jackson enough time to find those linebackers, as you were saying, or tight ends, as you were saying. The linebackers for the Jets are pretty dreadful. So I think that's a big advantage for the Ravens. And then you have Joe Flacco, who he played with his starters against a backup Giants defense in the final preseason game. He played into the second quarter. It's like a quarter and a half. By the time he left the field, they were losing 10-3, and he threw a pick 6. Like he looks so bad. You were saying like he might look good in the first half. Like I'd be shocked. Like Flacco is just a shell of his former self. Like if this were still 2018, 2017, I could see Flacco having a decent game. But at this stage of his career, he just has nothing left really. And so I just feel like the Ravens are going to dominate him. And it also helps Baltimore that they know Flacco very well. So it's not like they'll have to watch a lot of tape of him. Like they know his weaknesses, so they'll be able to exploit it, and they have the defensive weapons to do so. The Ravens were so banged up at the end of last year, and now they're all healthy. And I think people forget how good this team was when they were healthy. They remember the team that couldn't stop the pass at all at the end of last year. That's not going to be the case unless they have a ton of injuries again. So the Ravens completely healthy, much better team, much better coach. I like Saleh, but still much better coach. The extra time to prepare. This seems like a no-brainer at -7. I feel like this could be like -10. I still like Baltimore. So I'm on Baltimore for 4 units.
Yeah, I think this just like I said, it screams Baltimore blowout. Like I would like them at -10 too. You could probably get me up to like -12, and then at that point I'd be like, all right, well maybe there'd be a backdoor cover. But yeah, the Jets are not striking much fear into me, and I agree with you. I think people forget how good the Ravens were. That's one of the reasons I really like Lamar Jackson as an MVP candidate this year, because I think the Ravens have a chance. I don't know if they will, but they could get to 12, 13 wins. Be really high up there in a loaded AFC, and people might look at that and say, wow, Lamar Jackson, hey, he missed half of last year, and that's why they were bad. That won't be the whole story, but MVP voters love narrative, so I'm going to keep hounding on this Lamar Jackson MVP thing, and I imagine I'll be celebrating after week 1 given the matchup. We'll see if it gets any better for me after week 2, though.
Nice, yeah. Will it into existence? I like that. I like that call of him winning MVP. I think at his price, I think he's like 20-1 or something. I was in Vegas and I was trying to find like a 25-1, and I couldn't. There are some bargains out there like Jared Goff 300-1. It's just like, yeah, Jared Goff, but still he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. Like he should not be 300-1. But anyway, so we had a question here from Chris. When is the premium chat feature debuting, Walt? For us Walter Football Premium subscribers. So Walter Football Premium, so all the content's still going to be free on the site, but for $7.99 a month, you can get rid of all the ads, and we're going to have a premium chat where I'll be in every day. And that's it. My developer is working on it right now, and I think he's almost finished. So it's like within, I don't want to like say for sure, but definitely within the next week or two, it should be done by then. So I'll definitely keep you guys updated. Richard says Lamar is ripped, and actually says I can see this being a Ravens blowout. Jackson MVP discussion like in week 1, 2019, when they beat the Dolphins 59-10. I remember that game. That was the year we thought the Dolphins are going to go winless, and yet they found a way to go over the win total in the final week of the season, which is still giving me PTSD.
They ended my 14-0 week, went 13-1 because the Dolphins gave up a garbage time score to Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, that was frustrating times. So yeah, hopefully we don't have something crazy like that happen. So the next game, Saints at the Falcons. This line opened up, I believe it was Saints minus 3.5. It's gone all the way up to 5.5. I think it's because people are more optimistic about Jameis Winston, who is coming off a torn ACL, and he played in the preseason finale. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like the Saints. I'm not overly interested in this game, though. It's just not my favorite matchup. Like the Falcons don't have a good offense. Like, let's start with that. They're not going to move the ball against the Saints. I don't think that's going to happen. But I don't think New Orleans' defense is as strong as people remember it being, because they've lost some key pieces because, they've been ungodly amounts over the cap and have had to just cut ties with players and kind of continue to push that money down the road as they move off of that like cap strapped hell that they were in. But most recently, like they've lost Marcus Williams and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. So their secondary is not going to be as great as people remember it being. So that like worries me about how they're going to slow down Kyle Pitts. Like they did a great job on him as a rookie. He only had 5 catches for 70 yards against them in 2 games last year. And I think he was held to 8 receiving yards in one of those games. So the Saints knew how to slow him down. I'm not sure they're going to be able to have the personnel to do that as well this time around. But at the same time, Marshawn Lattimore is going to be able to eliminate Drake London. So Kyle Pitts is going to be the only semi-decent receiver that the Falcons have out there. Like Pitts is a top-tier talent, but everything else they have outside of him in London is like, there's really not much. So I don't see them moving the ball. I don't see them running the ball that much either against the Saints, because the Saints always tend to be good in that area. So, you say that and it sounds like, oh, well, the Saints should win handily, but I'm not convinced that they will, because the Falcons, they're not a strong roster, but their strength is in the secondary, where they have AJ Terrell and they signed Casey Hayward in the offseason. They have Mike Ford to play nickel. I think he used to play in Detroit. Don't quote me on that. And then they had that kid who played well in the preseason, whose name I'm forgetting, but they have good corners. So I think that they're going to be able to slow down the Michael Thomases of the world and Chris Olaves and just handcuff Jameis Winston a bit. Additionally, the Saints don't have Trevor Penning at left tackle. So, that's James Hurst over there. He's a veteran, but is he that good? I don't know. But then again, the Falcons don't have a great pass rush. So all in all, there's a lot of just conflicting stuff in this game. So I don't want to spend a lot of money on the Saints as nearly touchdown favorites against a team that they're better than, but are they that much better than? I don't think it's 5.5 points on the road. So I'm going to go with the Saints for office pool purposes, but I'm not feeling betting this game. I don't see the upside to it.
Yeah, so we're going to have our first disagreement, but I'm not that confident in this pick. It's like a 2-unit bet. I like Atlanta a little bit. I think this line's too high, as you were alluding to. I don't think the Saints are good enough to be 5.5 points better than Atlanta on the road. I made this line -4, so we're not getting any key numbers here. But the thing is, 2 things. One, you mentioned, I feel like Atlanta's strength is going to help stop the Saints offense a little bit with Michael Thomas, Chris Olave. Plus, we don't know if Thomas is 100%. Atlanta has very talented corners, so they should be able to slow down the Saints a little bit. I worry about Atlanta's linebackers covering Alvin Kamara, though. Like that's going to be an issue. But with the Saints missing their left tackle, who was replacing their other left tackle from last year, they're basically down to their third string left tackle in kind of sort of, but still like that should help Atlanta a little bit. Like you said, they don't have a good pass rush, so that's problematic. The second thing is these games tend to be close. I was looking back at the history of this rivalry, and except for 1 year, since 2006, there has always been one game between these two teams that's been decided by 8 points or fewer. No matter how good one team is compared to the other, one of these games, at least one of these games, is always close. And so I think that, with the Saints having a new head coach, I know he's coached before. That was a long time ago. To have a new coach favored by 5.5 points on the road, I think that's a little too much. Like if Dennis Allen had been coaching for the Saints last year as a head coach, I'd be a little less optimistic about the Falcons being able to cover. But a new coach in his debut, I don't think he should be favored by 5.5 points on the road, even against a bad team like Atlanta. But I wouldn't go crazy with this game because Atlanta could just be dreadful, like absolutely dreadful. They could be the worst team in the NFL. I don't think they are, but there's a chance they are. So I wouldn't risk it too much, but I like Atlanta for 2 units.
Yeah, and I could see your side of the case. I wrote that if Matt Ryan was still on the Falcons, I'd probably favor Atlanta because with him at quarterback, they were always close against the Saints. So I get your case with Dennis Allen, though. I don't like this game enough to bet on it, so I could switch sides at some point. Probably stick with the Saints for now. Just part of it, too, is I've been hearing from too many people, like the whole – Atlanta has a bad roster, and we all know that. But I've heard too many people being like, oh, people think they're going to be bad, but they're not going to be as bad as you think they are. And the more I hear that, the more I'm like, you guys are trying to sell a lemon here. Like, there's not a lot to like here. Like, yeah, Kyle Pitts and Drake London look good for the future, but what else does that offense have? Like Cordero Patterson, that's cool. But, he's a 31-year-old running back who had his first successful season last year. So, yeah, I just can't back Atlanta, but I don't want to back the Saints at this number. I agree with you that the line is too high. If it had been at the 3 that it was originally at, I might be willing to bet on New Orleans, but at this price, it's too high.
Yeah, it's a good point about Matt Ryan not being there. Maybe that counters the close argument between these two teams. But I will counter that the Saints always had Drew Brees as well. So
True.
now it's Jameis Winston. Although Winston looked good in that one drive, obviously a small sample size, but he looked good. He looked like trimmed down, and he looked like very aware in the pocket. Looked like a completely different quarterback. So we'll see. I could really see this going either way. I can see the Saints blowing Atlanta out, or I could see this being a very close game decided by 3 either way. A lot of question marks, I think, for both teams. So,
definitely.
Yeah. All right. Next game. I'm curious to hear your opinion on this because of where you live. The Patriots at the Dolphins. This line was the Dolphins -2.5 for like forever. And I remember being in Vegas and I saw a +3 and I was shocked by it. I was like, wow, I think the Sharps are going to nail this one. And then it moved to 3, and then like right away it moved to 3.5. So who do you like here?
Yeah, I like the Patriots here. I don't get why people are buying into the demise of the Patriots. I feel like this is a good opportunity to profit. Like, don't get me wrong. I have concerns about the offense. I have concerns about Matt Patricia running the show there, kind of, along with Joe Judge. Like, I would not endorse Belichick's plan to replace Josh McDaniels in this way. And I don't think it looked good in the preseason. But at the same time, we're talking about a coach in Bill Belichick who has been elite with extra time to prepare. And this team still has talent. I think people are forgetting that. Like, this offense has talent. They have a decent offensive line. Granted, they're replacing Shaq Mason, but they used a first-round pick on Cole Strange, so they obviously like him. The rest of their starters are pretty good, too. Their receiving core is better because they have Devontae Parker. Their running back core is always good. And Mac Jones has been kind of the talk of New England at times because he's looked good in practice at times, or the coaches have been positive about him making strides, and it hasn't showed up as much on the field, at least from what we've been able to see or what we've been privy to. But I still think that he's making strides forward mentally and physically, so that's important. And I just think if you look at the Dolphins, they're having a first-time head coach play against Bill Belichick. That's not an easy matchup. I know a lot of people like Mike McDaniel, and they say, hey, he comes from the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. He's going to be good. He has some good ideas. He seems cool. Let's be honest, that's what a lot of people are thinking right now because he gives some fun sound bites in news conferences. But we haven't seen him in action really outside of the preseason, and I get it. They looked good in the preseason, but what were they doing? They were just thrashing backups with Teddy Bridgewater, who can be a solid spot starter, and Skylar Thompson, who looks like a steal of a 7th round pick. But, this isn't the preseason. They're going to be facing a first string defense that's very talented. And Bill Belichick can scheme away Tyreek Hill. He's done it before. He won't take him away entirely, but he can eliminate the threat for the most part over the top. That'll make the Dolphins a bit less explosive. And he can have his defense get after Tua. So I think that this is going to be a pretty close game, especially since the Dolphins don't have Byron Jones, so they're a bit thinner at corner. And I know some of you will say, well, the Patriots are playing in Miami, and they're 2-7 there in their last 9 games dating back to 2013, which I know is very weird considering Tom Brady started most of those games. But some teams and some players just have that weird hill that they can't climb over. That's been the Patriots in Miami. But I think as underdogs in this scenario, they should keep it close. It's going to be a tight defensive struggle, in my opinion. And just remember, Bill Belichick is 32-20-1 as an underdog since 2003. Only the Steelers have covered a higher percentage of their games during that time. So I like the Patriots here, plus 3.5. We're getting a key number. So I think it's probably going to be a field goal game. So I like getting the underdog. I have it at 1 to 3 units. We'll see how confident I am in the Patriots offense by Saturday. But I think the Patriots are the right side.
I do too. And I even like them a little bit at 2.5. And now it's 3.5. And you said the key number, most NFL games, or I should say the highest percentage of margin is 3 for an NFL game. So to get the 3.5 and what I think should be a low scoring game, like you said, Belichick defensively scheming against a young quarterback with a coach coaching his first time as a head coach. And a team that, the Dolphins have a ton of talent. And I think if this game were like week 10, week 12, I think I would be maybe consider the Dolphins. But right now, their offensive line has to gel. Tua has to get used to playing with his new weapons. And I know it's obvious. It's pretty easy to get used to playing with Tyreek Hill, I think. But like you said, Belichick is the master of taking away one aspect of the opposing offense. And Jalen Waddle's banged up. So if he doesn't play, Belichick doesn't even have to worry about the other side of the field, really. I mean, although I do like Cedric Wilson, who should be solid for them, but still, and Mike Gesicki. So the Dolphins still have weapons, but, it'll be easier for Belichick to deal with it, obviously. And then the Patriots, like this is the ultimate buy low. This is like buying GameStop at like $5 or AMC at $2. Like everyone hates the Patriots right now. That's all you hear. How they struggled in the preseason. They couldn't move the ball against the Raider backups. It looked bad for sure, but it sounded like the Patriots were scheming heavily for the Raiders. Like they had a great game plan prepared. Like they're going to have a lot of time, like Belichick having a lot of time to prepare for this game. He's going to have a great game plan for a rookie head coach. And I expect Mac Jones to play better. And I think it'll help that, the problem right now with the Patriots is their offensive line. They just haven't been able to block, but the Dolphins pass rush isn't that good. So I don't think that's that much of an issue. So I'm with you on the Patriots. I just have one question for you. My only real concern here, and it's that it's going to be like 90 something and very humid in Miami for this 1 p.m. start. And the Patriots are going to be wearing their dark blue jerseys. Like, do you think that, like, are you scared of that? Like, I feel like that's my biggest worry.
So we fell into that trap when Baltimore won 59-10 against Miami.
That's true.
So in learning from that, I would say I'm not. Also, I'll counter with it has been really hot here this summer in New England. We had a month-long heat wave, just 90 plus, brutal humidity. And it only really broke up about a week ago. And Belichick and the Patriots are already down in Miami getting used to that climate now. So it's not like they're coming in Friday and having 48 hours to acclimate themselves before game time. So I think Belichick knows what he's doing with this. Maybe I think the temperature has been a concern in the past, but I think that they know what they're doing. And I think their summer training in the intense heat up here is going to have helped them because, it's been hot and I hate the heat. So it was not my favorite thing in the world up here.
No, I love the heat. In Vegas, when it was like 113, I was like, this is great. So I definitely hear what you're saying, especially with the Baltimore game. But like in that game, Baltimore was just so much better than Miami. Like they didn't need to like work very hard in the second half because it was already a blowout. My concern is that the Patriots wearing those dark jerseys will wear down in the second half. But I think you could be right too, where Belichick is going to have, obviously he's going to know about this and he's going to be well prepared for it. So, I'm with you on the Patriots regardless. That was just my one worry. And I was curious to hear what you had to say about it. So
it's definitely a good worry to have. I will say that, but I think they'll be okay. And I'll eat these words on next week's podcast if I'm wrong, I'm sure.
Yeah, if they're up 20-0 and they blow a big lead in the second half, they lose 24-20. All right, let's move on to the next game. I like this one a lot, so I'm hoping we're on the same side. The Browns at the Panthers. So this line was Browns -4.5 when we discussed it in May because we thought Deshaun Watson might be starting. Obviously, he is not. He's been suspended for 11 games. It's going to be Jacoby Brissett, and the Panthers got Baker Mayfield. So the Panthers are now favored by 2.5. It's actually down to 1.5 at the Westgate. So it's still Panthers favored by a little bit. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like the Browns here. It's a good team starting a backup quarterback. So I know Jacoby Brissett's not going to inspire a ton of hope for people, but look at the roster around him. It is very strong. And the line only getting to -2.5. And I know this might be me reading into things too much, but it screams of another like, hey, we want action on Baker Mayfield and the Panthers because the revenge game narrative and the Browns are going to be bad without Deshaun Watson. Like there was so much focus on Deshaun Watson, how much he meant to the Browns this offseason that I think the public mind is saying like, oh, they don't have Deshaun Watson. They're going to be terrible. They're not going to be terrible without him. They still have a strong team. So I think that the Browns are going to have a chance to cover this, potentially win this one outright. And if you just look at some of the matchups in this game, like Ike Ekwonu is going to be making his first start at left tackle, and he's going to be going up against Myles Garrett. Ekwonu did not look great during the preseason, and that's expected. There's always growing pains at tackle. We saw it last year with Penei Sewell. Finished the year very, very strong in the second half. The first half, he had some rocky moments. I think Ekwonu is going to have some similar issues, especially against Myles Garrett, who is just so good. And then on the other side of it, Mayfield's still learning how to connect with DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson and all the weapons that he has there. Laviska Shenault was just acquired via trade. So, if he sees snaps, they've only been working together for a few weeks. So a couple months of experience with Baker Mayfield is actually less than the experience Jacoby Brissett has with his teammates, which sounds hard to believe, but it is true. So I think that has an impact. And then the final thing for me is just the coaching here. Matt Rule could have been fired last offseason. No one would have batted an eye. The Panthers decided to keep him, but Kevin Stefanski's coming off a rough year, but he also led the Browns to their first playoff win in forever the year before with Baker Mayfield at quarterback. So he should be able to find success in this matchup and find some ways to beat the Panthers defense. I see the Browns playing kind of a ball control, rely on the defense, rely on the run game against Carolina. But I think that's going to be how they move things against this team and just kind of wear them out. I know Carolina has a good defense, but I still think that the duo of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt is going to be enough for the Browns potentially to win this game. If not, I think it's going to be very, very close. So I could see them covering this 2.5 point spread, even if they lose.
Yeah, so I mentioned that the line was 4.5, and that was with Watson potentially starting because we didn't know back then. I thought that if it was announced that Watson would be starting in week 1, I thought the line would move to like 6.5 or 7. So even if we call it 6.5, that means this line moved 9 points based on just one player. And I know quarterback is so important, but still, like a line shouldn't move 9 points for anyone. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Tom Brady in 2007. The line shouldn't move that much for any one player. And Jacoby Brissett's not that terrible. Like he's a solid backup, and he could do a good job if he's surrounded by good talent. And that's the case in Cleveland. Like he's going to have a great offensive line in front of him to block the Carolina pass rush. He's going to have a great running game going against a Panthers defense that's usually not that good against the run. And then on the other side, like you said, you made a great point about Baker Mayfield learning his players. Like, he hasn't been there the whole offseason. He's only been there a limited amount of time. They weren't even sure if he was going to be the starter, although I thought probably he was going to be. But still, he's still learning these players. And the Carolina offensive line is a big issue. I think Ekwonu, I think you make a good point. Like, Ekwonu could be good at the end of the year, but right now, especially against Myles Garrett, it's going to struggle. And I think Cleveland's pass rush is just going to get all over Mayfield. And the Cleveland coaching staff knows Mayfield very well. So again, like I said, with Joe Flacco, the Browns coaching staff's not going to have to do that much game planning against Mayfield. They know what they're going to go up against. So I think everything points in Cleveland's direction here. And yet the public loves the Panthers. There's so much money on the Panthers. And I think the sharps are just waiting for this to get to +3. I don't think the sportsbooks are going to let that happen. So I would recommend buying up to +3 if you can. I don't know if there's going to be a good possibility, but that's what I'm waiting for. But either way, I love the Browns. They're one of my top picks this week.
Yeah, I would sacrifice the however many cents per dollar just to get that +3 if you can, because I think in the worst case scenario, Carolina would win by a field goal, so you would push. But I agree with you. Yeah, the fact that that line has moved like bare minimum 7 points and maximum 9 or 10 is insane. And we're talking about a guy, Deshaun Watson, who has not played in almost 2 years. So it's kind of like, I get that you're expecting him to have a big impact, but Jacoby Brissett, like you said, is not that bad. So yeah, I'm glad we're on the same page here. I like the Browns a lot too. I'll probably be on them for 2 units, maybe a little bit more, just to establish for people who might be tuning in this for the first time. The most units I go on a bet are usually 4, but most of my bets are between 1 and 3 in any given week. Just so you don't think that I'm, so you know that I like this game even at 2 units. I'm not skimping out on it.
Nice. Yeah, I'm on the Browns for 4 units at least. I think it might go to 5 if we get +3. So, all right, next game, Steelers at the Bengals. This line open up 6.5. It's a rare case, but it hasn't moved at all. Like, I don't know why it just hasn't moved off 6.5. I recall us disagreeing about this game back in May, but I'm curious to hear your opinion on this game now.
Yeah, I can't remember how we disagreed in May. I think it might have been in this direct. I think it was in the opposite direction that I'm going now, but I like the Steelers here. And this year's matchup between them and the Bengals is a bit different. The Bengals should be favored, but this just feels like a little bit much for a team coming off of a Super Bowl loss. Like, people love to talk about the Rams potentially having a Super Bowl hangover. The Super Bowl loser can have a hangover too. Like, the Bengals played deep last year, and yeah, they're going to be mad that they didn't win the Super Bowl, but at the same time, like, they have to come out right away and play against a divisional rival. And that's going to be a tough game for them. And Mike Tomlin and the Steelers have been really good in week 1, usually, especially on the road. They're 5-4-1 outright in road games since Tomlin took over in 2007. And I know some people might say, oh, that doesn't sound that great, but that's outright. That's not against the spread. So, these are not always the easiest games for them too. Like, I know they played the Patriots and Tom Brady one year. They lost that badly because Ben Roethlisberger's elbow was a mess that year. But anyway, they've done well in week 1. They beat Buffalo in week 1 last year, and I remember being very annoyed by that. So that's part of what's influencing this. But in reality, I just think that this line's a little bit too high. I know a lot of people are going to say, hey, they have Mitch Trubisky as their starting quarterback. Why should we like them at this? Well, you should like them because they're a playoff team from last year that has gotten better in its weakest areas. I know this is weird, but Mitch Trubisky this year is better than what Ben Roethlisberger was last year. He was just a shell of himself. I think that's the phrase we've used probably 400 times on this podcast to describe Ben Roethlisberger at this point. But Trubisky, he's going to be better. He's going to have some mobility. He's going to be able to get the ball to George Pickens and Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool and Pat Freiermuth and Najee Harris. And James Daniels added to that offensive line is going to be a huge upgrade for them. Still not the greatest offensive line, but they're much better than they were last year because they actually have a talented guard up there. So anyway, yeah, Pittsburgh is going to be able to stick with Cincinnati. This is going to be your classic grinded out AFC North game. I think that the Steelers have the advantage in the spread. I think the Bengals probably win outright. But 6.5, we're getting the key number of 6, which I love getting in this scenario. And it's important to note that Zach Taylor is going into his 4th year as the Bengals coach. The previous 3 season openers for him have all been decided by 3 or fewer points in either direction, with the Bengals losing and winning. So they're always close in the preseason opener. They beat the Vikings in overtime last year. I can see another overtime game this year, even possibly. So I like the Steelers here at +6.5. I'll probably be on them for a couple units.
Yeah, we disagreed last time. You actually took the Steelers. I took the Bengals back in May. But we're on the same side now. I've joined you with Pittsburgh. So I agree with everything you said. But in addition to that, Joe Burrow is coming off an appendectomy, and there was an infection regarding his appendectomy, and he lost 20 pounds. So, he could be 100% heading into this game. It's possible. But then again, he may not be. And that's a big question mark. I don't want to be laying 6.5 points with a quarterback making his first start after an appendectomy. Like, it just seems like way too much of a risk. And I think all your other points are great. Like, the Steelers are a grinded out team. They're great as an underdog. Usually you want to fade them as a favorite. Unless they're playing an elite team like Kansas City last year, they just didn't have a chance. They just got smoked twice. But the Bengals, they have some flaws. So they can be beaten. Although I worry about Dan Moore blocking the Cincinnati edge rushers, that's going to be a problem. But I feel like the Steelers should be able to run well enough against the Bengals to keep this close. I like Joe Mixon though, so I think both running games are going to be prevalent in this game, and that just leads me to think that the underdog is going to cover because it's going to be a lower scoring game than people think. So, I'm with you on the Steelers. We could see another overtime game. I could definitely see like a 23-20, maybe 26-20, and we get the 6 that you were talking about. So, I like the Steelers. Not enough to bet them, but I'm on them for office full purposes.
I'm glad that you've joined the Steelers side. I thought that I was on the Steelers, but then I couldn't remember because I was high on the Steelers during the offseason. Because I love to project where good quarterbacks are going to land. And, they didn't get the best of Mitch Trubisky, but like I said, he's still an upgrade over Roethlisberger. But I think Pickett will eventually be that upgrade. So we'll see how long that Trubisky lasts as a starter.
Yeah, we'll see. Pickett was great in the preseason, but then again, Daniel Jones was too when he was a rookie. So let's see him in real action. Next game, 49ers at the Bears. For those of you who listened to the show, that I bet one side already a long time ago, like 2 months, like before I went to Vegas in July. So this line was Niners -6.5. It touched down to 6 for like a day, and now it's up to 7. So who do you like here?
Yeah, I love the 49ers. I locked this in, I think, at -6. It was either 6 or 6.5, but basic synopsis of why I wasn't just copying you. I agreed with you, though. The Bears are one of the worst teams in the NFL. Their offensive line is bad. I mean, they were signing guys off the street, basically, that were going to become starters for them like a month ago. So that's not a good sign. Their receiving corps is a mess outside of Darnell Mooney. So essentially, Justin Fields is going to have to carry this offense to any victories. And, maybe you can make the case David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert will help them on the offensive line, but their blocking is just not good. So they're not going to they might average 4 yards a carry, but not much more than that. So I do not like the Bears this year. Their defense is okay. They have some pieces. Their secondary, their young pieces in the secondary I like long term, but they're still not elite, and they're going to have trouble stopping this 49ers offense because they don't match up well against the middle of the San Francisco offensive line, which is the big weakness for the 49ers as it stands right now. So I think that Trey Lance is going to have enough time to make plays. So barring a disastrous outing from him where he just really struggles to read the field, I think the 49ers should score, maybe not at will, but plenty against the Bears. And I think the 49ers defense is going to pose a massive threat to the Bears offense because their pass rush is really, really good. So they can make Fields have to scramble around, which he's capable of doing. But, without good receiving weapons, it's going to be really, really hard for him to consistently generate positive plays in that scenario. So I like the 49ers. I think I bet 3 units on them at -6. At -7, I might knock a unit off that count, but I think the 49ers are the superior team. The only thing that would give me pause is the possibility of Trey Lance imploding and the fact that last year the San Francisco 49ers were favored by 8 in week 1, were up 24, and failed to cover against the Lions. That was not a good day. Week 1 last year was very annoying.
16 points in 4 minutes for the Lions last year. But I mean, if you got the -7 or -7.5 last year, you were looking pretty good. Not so much the 8.5. That was the closing number. So that was my thinking behind this game. Was this is again the Niners at an NFC North team favored by about a touchdown. So I thought, yeah, I want to grab the best number I can before it rises. And we saw it rise from 6 to 7. I think it might go even higher. I just don't see like who's betting the Bears here. Like there are two games in Week 1 this year where I feel like the one of the team's offensive line can't block the defensive line, and this is one of them. The Bears, they have the worst offensive line in the NFL, I think. And so I don't see them blocking Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, Kerry Hyder, etc. Like I just don't see it happening. And then you have Trey Lance, who you could argue that okay he might implode, but I think the fact that the Bears aren't going to have that much film on him, I think that could really benefit the 49ers because it's not like he's going against a great Bears defense. There's no Khalil Mack anymore. There's no Akeem Hicks, no Eddie Goldman. All those guys are gone. They lost some of their cornerbacks from a couple years ago. Bryce Callahan, Kyle Fuller, they're all gone. So the Bears defense from 2018 that was so great that carried them to the playoffs is a shell of its former self. So I love the Niners. And also the Bears have a rookie head coach going against Kyle Shanahan. I think that's a big advantage for the 49ers. So I love the 49ers at -6. I bet them for 5 units. At -7, like you, I think I would knock a unit off. 4 units still sounds good to me. So yeah, the Niners should be able to win this one easily.
Yeah, hopefully they can just knock the socks off the Bears and just give us an easy win where we don't have to sweat out a really bad backdoor cover this year. I don't want to relive that. I really don't.
That was brutal. I don't, we talked about doing a bad beats podcast for the summer, and like I started gathering the info. I'm like, this is too brutal. Let's just move on with our lives. So, all right. So we have another NFC North home underdog here with the Eagles at the Lions. This line opened up Eagles -4. It popped up to 4.5 for a little bit, and then it's back down to 4. So who do you like here?
Yeah, I'm a little torn on this one. I like both of these teams this year. And my thought was that a lot of people were going to be on the Eagles because they've added a lot to their team and they look like a potential favorite in the NFC all of a sudden with some of the moves they've made. I mean, they've done a good job of adding guys like A.J. Brown, Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, James Bradbury, and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to their roster. I mean, that is a lot of talent, and it's what Howie Roseman does. He just finds ways to trade for players. He finds way to draft guys that are falling or move up to get guys that he really likes and thinks will be good. So I really like the Eagles roster, but at the same time, I think that the Lions are being pretty underrated right now. I mean, Dan Campbell's team played really, really hard last year all the time. The results didn't show up early in the year, but they covered the spread a lot more than people realize. And then once they started winning, I think the players were kind of like, oh, this approach is going to pay off. And I know there may be some of the hard knocks effect where if you've seen some episodes of this, you're like, oh, yeah, I love this Lions coaching staff. And I know a lot of people were accusing me on our Sporting News meeting call today because I said the Lions would make the playoffs during that. And they were like, what is wrong with you? But, they're just not seeing what we're seeing in them. And they've added a ton of talent, too. Like DJ Chark and Aiden Hutchinson stand out amongst the group. Jameson Williams isn't here for this game, but he will be eventually. But there are a lot of other like lower end free agent signings that they made. I think they added like Charles Harris and Deshaun Elliott. And they added a cornerback who I like, Mike Hughes from the Chiefs. So they've made some of those under the radar signings that's going to just increase their total amount of talent. So, I mean, I think the Eagles are the better team, but I think the Lions at +4 with Dan Campbell's energy, I think that they're going to have a shot at covering. So I'm going with the Lions here right now. I think they'll stay in this game. I don't know if I'm going to bet this, though. I have it down as 0 to 1 unit because I don't want to go against the Eagles because I think they're the better team. I'm just not sure that they're going to come out and say, hey, we need to be ready for this Detroit team right away. Like they're going to be a big challenge. They might be kind of saying like, oh yeah, we can handle Detroit. And then our Monday night football game with Minnesota the next week will be a bigger test. So I think if the Eagles sleep on the Lions a bit, this could be close. So that's why I'm with the Lions now. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this because I know you like these two teams as well.
Yeah, I'm upset that they're playing each other in week one. I like people. I live right outside of Philly, so people always ask me about the Eagles. They're like, "What do you think about the Eagles week one?" I'm like, "Yeah, potential NFC Championship preview," and they all think I'm crazy, or they either think I'm crazy or I'm joking. And well, maybe I'm crazy, but I'm definitely not joking. I think the Eagles are, in my opinion, the best team in the NFC. And the Lions are my dark horse team. So, like, I don't want to go against either of these teams. Although I think there is definite line value with the Lions because I made this line Eagles -1, and that's a byproduct of me being very high on the Lions. So if you're not high on the Lions, you might look at -4 and think, okay, it seems right, or maybe the Eagles should be favored by more. But I think if you like the Lions as much as we do, you think there is value with the Lions. The one thing I'll say here, in addition to that, is that this is a big revenge game for the Lions. People might not remember this, but the Eagles went into Detroit last year, and it was one of the few games last year where the Lions were healthy and they weren't competitive. They just got blown out of the water. The Eagles just obliterated them. And so the Lions might remember that. And the Eagles, like you said, they have a Monday night game coming up. It's against Minnesota, so it's not like they're playing Dallas or the Giants or anything. It's not a rival, but still, it's a Monday night game, and the Eagles may not think the Lions are a threat to them. And if they don't, the Lions will beat them. The Lions are good enough to do that. They have great offensive talent. I think a top 5 offensive line, an improved defense with the guys you mentioned. So they could pull the upset if the Eagles are overlooking them for sure. So, yeah, I'm not going to bet this game because I love these two teams. I'm not going to go against my Super Bowl pick for the NFC or my top dark horse team. So, yeah, just going to watch this one, enjoy it. But I'm picking the Lions for office pool purposes.
Yeah, I think in week 2, whichever team loses this game, we are going to get great value on. So I look forward to that. But I agree with you. Not betting it seems like the best strategy. And anyone who's like, why do you guys like the Lions so much? You guys are crazy. You can give it to us if they're bad. This might be a repeat of the Giants situation from a couple years ago where we're like, oh, yeah, they're going to win the NFC East. They're the best team in the NFC East. And then I was like, oh, well, not quite. But I think maybe you're early on lines, but I think in this NFC, they should be very good.
I think the mistake we made with the Giants was that they made some good moves, but their offensive line was still garbage that year. So that really hurt them. And also, Saquon Barkley tore his ACL in week 2. So, I feel like the Giants could have been better than they were in 2020, but just their offensive line being bad was our mistake. But here, Detroit, I think you would agree they have a top 5 offensive line potentially.
Yep. Halapavulivati Vaitai, though, is injured.
He's always injured though. Like it's nothing new, right?
I only brought him up because I wanted to say his name, but they've got they'll put Logan Stenberg or Tommy Kramer in. They should be fine. He's their Vaitai, I think, is their 5th best offensive lineman anyway, so
Yeah,
they're in good shape.
Agreed. All right, next game, Colts at the Texans. There was line movement today on this game, so this was Colts -8 for a long time, and then it moved to 7. Sharp money on Houston. So who do you like here?
I'm with the Sharps here. I'm a little annoyed now that it was at 8 earlier in the day because I didn't check. But this line just feels off. It's not like I'm high on the Texans, but the Colts I don't think should be favored by 7 on the road against the divisional rival. A lot of people want to blame all of Indy's problems last year on Carson Wentz. Wentz was responsible for a good chunk of their struggles on offense. He had his share of problems, but he wasn't the only thing wrong with this team. And I think too many people bought into the idea of, oh, they got Matt Ryan. They're going to be significantly better without any other changes. No, they still have some concerns, and they're going to possibly show up in this matchup. They lost Mark Lewinsky at right guard. They lost Eric Fisher at left tackle. So they're breaking in Matt Pryor and Danny Pinter. Both of who I like, but we don't know how they're going to do. And Lovie Smith's a good defensive coach. Like, I don't think he's going to do well as a head coach, but we saw last year he was ready to just pulverize the Jaguars in week 1, and the Texans just took it to Trevor Lawrence. I don't think that's going to happen in this game. I think the Colts are better than the Jaguars and significantly better coached than the Jaguars were under Urban Meyer. But I just think that the Texans are going to be able to keep this close because even if the Colts get up big, their defense in the 4th quarter last year was not very good. And I could see the Texans potentially – I don't think this has huge backdoor cover potential, but if the Colts are up 2 touchdowns and Davis Mills is going down the field with 2 minutes left in the game, they're not necessarily going to be like, oh, we need to stop Davis Mills in this scenario. So there is some backdoor cover potential, even if the Texans can't keep this close. But I do think they'll keep it close because their offense, Davis Mills was capable at times last year. Granted, not against Indianapolis, so maybe they have his number. But he's got better weapons this year with Dameon Pierce. Brandon Cooks is still there. And Nico Collins could separate himself as a red zone weapon this year. So I like what they're going to be able to do. I don't think that they're great, but I think that they keep it close to the Colts. So +7, I'm on the Texans for 1 to 2 units. It's just a matter of how much I want to bet on a bad team. So, yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, this line's way too high. I made it Colts -4. A lot of people love the Colts this year. I really don't know why. Carson Wentz was a liability down the stretch. Like they didn't want him to throw. Remember those 2 night games they had? Like they kept running the ball nonstop. And then week 17 against the Raiders, he completed 1 pass in the first 23 minutes, and then he lost to the Jaguars. So he was definitely a liability. But at times last year, he was very good, especially drawing those deep pass interference flags. And that's something I feel like Matt Ryan can't do at this stage of his career. But he doesn't have the downside that Wentz has with his stupid interceptions and the triple coverage. Another bad beat against Tennessee, by the way. So I think the Colts will be better with Matt Ryan, but I don't think they're going to be substantially better considering that they're going to be down the 2 offensive linemen you mentioned. Also, Darius Leonard, now Shaq Leonard, he might be out this game. It sounds like he's a long shot to play. He has a chance to suit up, but he may not be 100%. So him not being on the field is a big deal. I mean, he's their best defensive player. So Leonard being out is just another advantage for Houston here. And Houston has they were blown out twice by the Colts last year, so this is a revenge game for them. The first game I recall, they had no offensive line. Like Laramie Tunsil was out, I believe, and they were missing some other blockers, so they just couldn't block the Colts. And I can't remember when that happened in the second game, but like there were some weird turnovers or something. So I don't think the Colts are 8 points or now 7 points better than Houston on the road. I think this line is about -4. It should be. And Houston at the end of the year, I think people forget this, but they were a lot more competitive than they were in the first half of the year. Like they beat the Chargers, they beat the Titans, and then they almost beat the Titans a second time in Week 18. So I think they could compete with the Colts, who were not an elite team by any stretch. Like if the Colts were an elite team, I could see this line being justified at 7 or 8. But the Colts are, to me, they're just an average to slightly below average team, and the Texans might be the worst team in the NFL, but I don't think so. I think the Texans are probably like 29 or 30 in the power rankings, so they shouldn't be +7. And I can see why the sharps are betting on them.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense to me. The fact that there's sharp money on this, the Colts they're not as good as people want them to be. I feel like Matt Ryan is probably most comparable to what Phillip Rivers meant to them. I think Matt Ryan at this stage of his career is a little bit better than Phillip Rivers, but I don't think if you took Phillip Rivers and put him on this Colts team, you would make them 7-point favorites or 6-point favorites even. So, yeah, I agree with you. This line's too high.
Yeah, speaking of Rivers, remember, was it 2020, the Colts at the Jaguars? And the Colts were in Week 1. The Colts are like -9, -9.5, and they lost outright to Jacksonville. And the Jaguars didn't win again after that, and the Colts made the playoffs. So it's Week 1. Anything can happen, really.
Yep, that was a painful one for survivor pools everywhere.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know if I had the Colts as a side, but I definitely had them in Survivor. So that kind of sucked. All right. Speaking of the Jaguars at the Redskins. The Redskins were -4 back in May. And then they were 3.5 for a while. And then just moved to 2.5 so suddenly. The sharps all over the Jaguars. So who do you like here?
Yeah, I like the Jaguars too. I'm not sure I'll bet this game. I don't know if I trust either team just yet. But, we were just talking about Carson Wentz and how he wasn't the entire problem for the Colts, but he was prone to boneheaded mistakes and just games where he couldn't pass the ball well. And we saw that in Week 18 against Jacksonville. So some people might say, oh, he's going to have a chance for revenge against the Jaguars right away. So maybe this will be an opportunity for him. But at the same time, he could just struggle again because the Jaguars defense now is better and healthier than it was last year. And I don't know how much chemistry Carson Wentz has with his weapons. I think he was doing well targeting Deshaun. Oh my goodness, I'm having trouble with names today. Jahan Dotson. But Terry McLaurin, I don't know if they had as good a chemistry, and McLaurin's their best weapon. So, if they're still developing chemistry, that's going to make it harder for them to move the ball. And then on the other side of things, like I know the Jaguars aren't a perfect team. They have holes. I think they're going to be one of the lower ranked teams in the NFL, by talent. That doesn't mean they're not going to win their division because their division is terrible. But they have Doug Peterson as their coach now, and Trevor Lawrence should be motivated to show off after a rocky rookie year under Urban Meyer. So I think that the Jaguars could win this game. At the very least, they'll keep it close. So I favor the underdog here. I wish we were getting the 3 still. If we were getting the 3, the 3.5, or the 4, I would really like the Jaguars because I would think it would be a field goal game. With us not getting the 3, I think that I'm still going with the Jaguars, but I just don't want to bet it. But I just see the Jaguars being able to move the ball on Washington because Washington is pretty bad at linebacker and they're thin at corner. So if they have trouble in those areas, it's going to be hard for them to contain Trevor Lawrence as a passer because he likes throwing really far downfield shots and now has a receiver in Christian Kirk who can actually provide some field stretching ability. So long story short, I like the Jaguars, not enough to bet them right now.
Yeah, I like the Jaguars matchup here against the Redskins. Like the Redskin linebackers, I feel like are not going to be able to cover ATN. And then the corners, like you said, against Christian Kirk just seems like a good matchup for Jacksonville. People, I think, remember like last year at this time, people thought, okay, with Trevor Lawrence, the Jaguars might be able to make the playoffs. And then they just got blown out week 1 against Houston. They got blown out the next 2 weeks. It was horrible under Urban Meyer. But now they have a real head coach. They have good talent, maybe not good talent, but they definitely have much better talent than they had last year around Lawrence, especially after DJ Chark got hurt in week 4. And the pass rush is going to be better with Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen across from him. So I like the direction that the Jaguars are heading. And I think Jacksonville should be favored in this game. I actually made Jacksonville -1. And I gave Washington no points for being at home because they've since 2010, they've had the worst home field advantage in the NFL except for the Giants in terms of covering the spread. So I gave them no points. So I think Jacksonville should be -1. So with that in mind, I was so disappointed in myself that I didn't lock this in, especially at +3.5, but then it was +3. I don't know why I didn't do it. Like I locked in 2 other games and I saw the +3 and for some reason I thought I had a lot of time, but the Sharps bet Jacksonville +3. Now it's +2.5. And, a likely result of this game is the Redskins winning by 3. So I don't want to bet this game heavily, although I still like Jacksonville a little bit at +2.5. I just think they should be favored. I think they're the better team and I expect them to challenge for the division. And I think Washington's going to be bad this year, especially with Wentz. I think he's going to demoralize the locker room. And like you said, he may not have the best chemistry with his weapons just yet.
Yeah, I'm a little higher on Washington than you are. I probably would have made them 1.5-point favorites because I agree with you, though. FedEx Field doesn't have home field advantage. Through no fault of the fans, that stadium it needs a lot of upgrades and their owner is not making them. So, but Jacksonville seems like the right side here. If you put this game last year, I feel like people would be very into the idea of betting the Jaguars before all the Urban Meyer stuff. Like they're a good sleeper this year. We did bet them to win the Super Bowl before free agency because they had so much money to spend. We were like, can't be worse than Urban Meyer. And, they didn't do everything we wanted to with the money, but they still might make the playoffs because of how weak the AFC South is and the fact that there's no true contender there, even including the Colts.
Yeah, they not only did they not spend their money correctly, they also saw some talented quarterbacks come into the conference. So it's a kind of a double whammy there, but still, I don't think it's the worst bet because I think they could definitely win the division. It's a weak division, like you said, and who knows if you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. So if we have, what was it, is it 125-1? Was it or something like that?
I think it was 125-1. Yeah.
If you have a 125-1 team in the playoffs, you can hedge. So hopefully we get the opportunity to do that. So that is the last of the early games. Before we get to the late games, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. All that would help us out a lot if you wanted to support the show. All right, next game, Chiefs at the Cardinals. So this was Chiefs -3 for a long time. And then all of a sudden it just skyrocketed to 6. There's so much sharp money coming in Kansas City. So who do you like here?
Yeah, I like Kansas City. This is another spot where I'm like, well, wish I bet that one earlier, but Tuesdays I'm usually doing something. Yes, yikes, Jacksonville. It was a 125-1 bet. I want to clarify that. It's not like we're like, yes, Jacksonville to win the Super Bowl 1-1 odds or anything crazy like that. But anyway, back to the Chiefs here. I mean, we're talking Andy Reid with extra time to prepare against a Cardinals team that made the playoffs last year, but isn't good anymore. They lost a lot of talent. Their offensive line can't block. DeAndre Hopkins is suspended, so he won't be playing. So you're talking about Marquise Brown being your number one receiver, which can work. It worked in Baltimore for a bit, but I mean, Arizona doesn't have the same type of running game or blocking in front of Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray is not a run first guy. He can run, but he's more looking to pass. So I think it hurts him to have to, just have one really good receiver out on the field in Marquise Brown. So I think that the Chiefs defense is going to be better too. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be fine on offense, even without Tyreek Hill. It's just the extra time to prepare with Andy Reid. He's such a better coach than Cliff Kingsbury at this point. And the Chiefs are just a superior team. Like, we were high on the Cardinals going into last year. And we proved, a solid pick because they started the year undefeated. But things just unraveled after that. And then they lost a lot of talent this offseason. Their pass rush isn't what it once was. They lost Chandler Jones. They still don't have good corners because Antonio Hamilton, who was supposed to be their number 2 corner, injured himself in a cooking accident and actually is thankfully okay, but he suffered some bad burns. So feel bad for that guy. And so they're going to be without him. And then they had also signed Jeff Gladney, who unfortunately passed away during the offseason. And then they just traded for Trayvon Mullen, and Mullen has just been with the team a couple of weeks, and he might be your top corner. So outside of Byron Murphy, but yeah, there's just so many problems with the Cardinals. I love the Chiefs here. The only thing giving me pause is that they're playing the Chargers on Thursday Night Football in week 2. So, they might not care as much about blowing the doors off Arizona. They might just say, all right, we built the lead. Now we got to rest. It doesn't matter how much we win by so long as we win type deal, especially since it's an NFC opponent. But at the same time, I don't think that Arizona can really hold a candle to Kansas City. So I'm going to be on the Chiefs at -6 for a couple units. If this was still at -3 or even the -4.5 I saw earlier today, I would probably be saying, yeah, I might consider 3 or 4 units on this one. I don't see a way in which the Chiefs don't win this one and don't win it big.
Yeah, the look ahead is something that should be discussed. I mean, it's against the Chargers, so it's a much more important game for the Chiefs. But I don't think they're going to look past the Cardinals for 2 reasons. One, as you said, Andy Reid in week 1 with extra time to prepare, like he's been excellent with the Chiefs in that role. I think he's 6-3. He's 6-3 against the spread in week 1 with the Chiefs, so pretty good. Especially given that these numbers are always inflated, because I feel like people know that by now. They may not know that about John Harbaugh or Sean McVay, but they definitely know that Andy Reid is great with extra time to prepare. So you're never getting a good line, and that's definitely not the case here. The second reason why I don't think they're going to look ahead past this game is because Patrick Mahomes, as we know, is like one of the biggest chips on his shoulder. He's always looking to prove himself, even though he won the Super Bowl already and he won MVP. Patrick Mahomes is he's going to be playing against Kyler Murray, who is a number 1 pick in the draft. And I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be like, hey, this guy went number 1 overall. Like, why wasn't I number 1 overall? And I think that I think that Mahomes is going to want to prove that he's the better quarterback. We saw it a couple of years ago. Remember, they played the Jets and they were like 13-point favorites. And he was talking about, like, all week he was talking about how the Jets passed on him. So like, he's one of those guys who's just going to want to prove that he's better than Murray. So I think the Chiefs are going to be focused. I like their matchups here. There's no DeAndre Hopkins, so all they have to worry about is Marquise Brown. And they should be able to play him pretty well. The Chiefs secondary is not bad. And then Chris Jones against that interior Arizona offensive line looks like such a big advantage for Kansas City. You have 2 guards who are kind of underwhelming, and then they still have their center Rodney Hudson, but he was thinking about retirement this offseason. So I wonder if his heart's going to be in the game. I could see him not performing as well. Kind of reminds me of his name escapes me, but Arizona had this tackle who eventually played for the Raiders, or maybe it was vice versa. and he was pretty good. And then he thought about retirement, and then he just fell off, even though he kept playing. I'll have to look it up, but
Jared Veldheer.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Veldheer. Yeah, he was good for a while, and then he thought about retirement, and then he just fell off. So I think the same thing could happen with Rodney Hudson. And then you mentioned Arizona's secondary issues, and you might think, okay, Tyreek Hill is gone. How can Kansas City take advantage of it? But Kansas City is not as top heavy at receiver anymore, but they have more depth there now. With all the weapons they added. They added Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. They drafted Sky Moore. They still have Mecole Hardman. They Travis Kelce. So it's going to be a much diversified attack for the Chiefs rather than more concentrated with Tyreek Hill and Kelce. So, I like the Chiefs here. Just disappointed we missed out on 3, and then we don't even get the full 6 at -6. So I don't know if I'm going to bet this game just because of the line movement. It seems like you're buying a stock at like an all-time high, really, at this -6. But I guess theoretically it could keep going up. But I'm with you on the Chiefs.
Yeah, I don't love the line movement, but I love Andy Reid enough to back him. So, and I'm excited to see the Chiefs receiving attack. It's going to be interesting that they're not so heavily focused on Tyreek Hill. They're going to be able to throw a lot of different looks at defenses. So it's going to be fun to see how they choose to attack. So I'm looking forward to seeing them in action twice in the first week of the season.
Yeah, it'll definitely be fun within the span of 4 days. So, all right, next game, staying in the AFC West, the Raiders at the Chargers. This line has been 3.5 this whole time, just hasn't moved. So who do you like here?
Yeah, I'm very much a coin flip on this game. So depending on which way you go, you might sway me. But I have the Raiders written down right now. I know I just said the look ahead factor is something to consider for the Chiefs, and I'm not worried about it. I'm also not worried about it for the Chargers, even though I'm on the opposite side of them, because I think this game means a lot to the Chargers because they're the underdog in this division until they can unseat the Chiefs. Like, a lot of people like the Chargers. We over at Sporting News think they are a Super Bowl contender. And I think a lot of people think that. So they're going to want to come out of the gate fast and beat the Chiefs and try to prove to everyone, like, hey, we belong here. But at the same time, this game is a divisional rivalry against the Raiders, and it's a revenge game because the Raiders in week 18 last year kicked a game-winning field goal in overtime as time expired to knock the Chargers out of the playoffs. If they had tied, they would have both made it. If Brandon Staley had not called a timeout, Rich Bisaccia seemed resigned to the fact that he was going to let the game tie and eliminate the Steelers. Wild story. Just a really wild game. But, I think that the Chargers are going to really have the chip on their shoulder about that. So you would say that and you'd think, oh, well, the Chargers should probably win this game. And I think they will, but the Raiders, they still have a lot of talent on offense. Like, we've got Derek Carr and Devontae Adams and Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow. So they're going to be able to move the ball on the Chargers defense, even though the Chargers have made a lot of upgrades and are going to be able to get some pressure on the right side of that offensive line, which is supposedly going to start Lester Cotton and Jermaine Illuminor. So that's going to be interesting for the Raiders. But Josh McDaniels likes them, so they can't be that bad. But anyway, I like the Chargers as a team. I think they're better than the Raiders, especially with that uncertainty. But this number, I just can't get past this number. Every time I was like, yeah, I think the Chargers will cover this. I'm like, but I don't think that. I think this is going to be another field goal game. And I think this has the potential to be an offensive shootout. This could be like a 34-31 game. And I could see Dustin Hopkins going down and kicking a game-winning field goal as time expires for the Chargers. And that would be a very poetic way for them to get their revenge. So, I think that this is going to be a close game. If this was -3, I might be on the Chargers. But at -3.5, I'm on the Raiders. But I open the floor to you to see if you can convince me as to why I am right or wrong.
So this is weird because I'm going to argue against you, but yet agree with your side. So I like the Raiders a tiny bit, not enough to bet them. I'm going to be on them for +3.5. But the one thing I'll disagree with you on is the Chargers look ahead factor. Like, you could be right. Like, I'm not going to pretend like I'm this great psychologist who can read how teams are going to react. And on the surface, I think you're right that the Chargers can't really look past the Raiders because, first of all, the Raiders are, I think, a contender for this division. And second, they lost to the Raiders in Week 18 last year, and had they won or tied, they would have made the playoffs. However, I don't know if they see this as a revenge game because they lost because of their own stupidity or I guess their own coach's stupidity. It's not like they can blame the Raiders for their loss. It's just Brandon Staley's timeout. So I don't know if this is a revenge game. Plus, going against the Chiefs in 4 days, like you have to prepare for that. Like I could see the Chiefs not preparing for the Chargers just because they've been around before. They won the Super Bowl with Mahomes. They've been to 2 Super Bowls. And plus, Kyler Murray, Mahomes is going to be into that rivalry sort of. But here, the Chargers, they know that the Chiefs are going to be a tough team to handle in just 4 days. So, and plus, it's going to be like the first streaming game. Like I think that's a big deal. So I really don't see this as a revenge game for the Chargers. However, I think that I think the 3.5 is just too much. Like if this were -3, I think I would maybe think about the Chargers because I don't see how the Raiders are going to block the Charger pass rushers that well. But then again, the Raiders should be able to still move the ball. They have so many weapons. I don't know how the Chargers are going to cover Darren Waller with their linebacking core. They signed Denzel Perryman, but he's better against the run than the pass. So I think that's a big advantage for the Raiders, just having Waller go over the middle. And the Chargers can't focus on him anymore just because they have Devontae Adams on the outside. So I think this is going to be a close game, like you said. I think the +3.5 it should be good enough for the Raiders to cover, but it's really could go either way. Plus McDaniels' first game. It's another reason why I don't want to bet the Raiders. And just a new coach and not getting all the key numbers, just getting one. So like I said, I feel like this is the game where I was most torn on this week. There's actually another one. There are like 2 games. So I could see this going either way. So yeah, like I said, we agree, but disagree at the same time.
Yep, that's kind of how I felt being torn on this. You make good points about the revenge game element of it. I hadn't considered that they were only looking for revenge on themselves, which I don't know how that would work, but I guess they got rid of some players this offseason, so maybe that's their form of revenge.
That's true. Or maybe not let Brandon Staley call timeouts, just have like a designated timeout coach or something. All right, next game, Packers at the Vikings. This line's been shifting between 1.5 and 2.5 like this whole offseason. It actually opened up 1.5. It went to 2.5, now back down to 1.5. So who you like here?
Yeah, I like the Packers here. I'm not big on this game. I'm on a 0 to 1 unit count for this, but Aaron Rodgers has typically won the season opener with the Packers. Last year, he did not, as we well know. He laid a complete egg, and it was awful to watch. One of probably the worst games of his career, but he didn't really care because he'll just do that. Like one game here, if things don't go well, he's mellowing out and just zen. He's like, it's cool, guys. We're going to be fine. And it's worked. So, that's good for him. It's just very frustrating to never know when that's coming. But I feel like the Packers are better than the Vikings by more than the spread indicates. Not by a lot, but by enough that I'm like, yeah, the Packers are the right side here because this is Kevin O'Connell's first game. And then you look at the fact the Packers lost Devontae Adams, and I feel like a lot of people are focused on that to the point that it's disproportionately affecting the spread because Adams is a huge loss. Don't get me wrong on that, but the Packers are just going to rely more on their run game, and they're going to rely more on some unproven weapons at receiver. But the Vikings aren't good at corner. That's one of their biggest weaknesses still. So Aaron Rodgers can take advantage of that no matter who's playing receiver. It's just whoever he has the best chemistry with is going to get the ball more and is going to get open more. And they're going to be able to run the ball on the Vikings. So I think the Vikings are better this year than they were last year, but that weakness in the secondary is too much to overcome. And trusting O'Connell in this matchup with Matt LaFleur, who's one of the best regular season head coaches so far during his career at 39-10, it's just not appealing to me. If this number was, say, -3 for Green Bay, then I might be like, do they deserve to be 3-point road favorites? I probably would flip to the other side. But as long as we're at the 1.5 to 2.5 range, I like the Packers enough to consider putting a unit on them. I'll probably put 1 on them for my bet this week.
Yeah, I think 3.5 would be the tipping point for me. We agree on the Packers, and I totally agree with what you said about just people just being way down on the Packers because Devontae Adams is gone. But people forget that David Bakhtiari is coming back. I think that's a huge deal. Remember that Sunday night game late in the year in 2020 when they were just obliterating the Titans? And then I thought back then that the Packers were going to win the Super Bowl that year. And then Bakhtiari goes down. And suddenly it's like, okay, they're not going to win the Super Bowl with Bakhtiari gone, especially given that they had another offensive line injury. But having Bakhtiari back, it's just going to really help this team, especially against Minnesota's pass rush, which is going to be pretty good this year. Just having Rodgers have lots of time in the pocket, especially against that Minnesota secondary that shouldn't be able to cover the Green Bay receivers that well. I know that like Romeo, you're counting on Romeo Doubs and maybe Christian Watson and Sammy Watkins and Alan Lazard may not play. And you have Randall Cobb. Just sounds bad, but still, like Rodgers will have more protection than he's had in a long time. And also, like I like Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon as receivers coming out of the backfield. I think they'll do well. And this is a big game. I mean, Kirk Cousins has won some big games, but generally speaking, he usually tends to disappoint in these big games. And then he's going against Green Bay's defense, which is going to be possibly the best stop unit in the NFL this year. So I think everything points to the Packers. And you mentioned the week 1 thing from last year. I think that's a positive for this game because, Rodgers is going to be like, both Rodgers and LaFleur are going to be like, okay, we can't do what we did last year, just lay an egg against the Saints like we did against the Saints. And plus, this is the divisional matchup. So they're going to be more focused on the Vikings than they were against the Saints last year. So, yeah, I like Green Bay more than you do. I'm going to bet them for a couple units.
Yeah, you could convince me to go more units on them because I agree with you. I love the improved offensive line that they're getting players back from injury because my boy Legs Jenkins, I can't say his name, so I'm just going to call him Legs now. Elton Jenkins is going to be back at right tackle. But I think he's going to be an upgrade there. And then the defense, I agree with you. They've upgraded it big time. And Jair Alexander and Eric Stokes are going to be able to kind of lock down Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen and just say Kirk Cousins, hey, you have to beat us some other way. And that's going to be tough for him.
Yeah, it's insane that the Packers were 7th in yards allowed last year, and Alexander played just 4 games. Like he's gonna be back. They added the 2 first-round picks on defense. This defense is gonna be incredible. And people were sleeping on the Packers. I think that's a big mistake just because Adams is gone. All right, next game, Giants and Titans. This line was Titans -6.5 at the beginning of the summer. Went down to 6. Then I bet the Giants, as I announced a few weeks ago. Now it's down to 5.5. You can still get +6 -120 at BetUS right now. I'm sure there are probably some other books where you can get +6 -120-ish. But either way, who do you like this game?
Yeah, I like the Giants here. I think I locked them in a +6 or +6.5. I can't remember which. The Titans are just so much worse than they were last year, and they haven't been good as favorites under Mike Vrabel. I think people forget that. They see, oh, yeah, the Titans, they won a lot of games last year. They're favored. Yeah, they should be favored over the Giants, but I mean, let's break down what they've lost. A.J. Brown is gone, so they're down at receiver. They've lost 2 offensive linemen. Roger Saffold and David Questenberry are gone. 2 really good run blockers. So they're not going to be able to run the ball as well, even with the healthy Derrick Henry, which is huge because, Henry can run through guys, but you want him to run through guys at the end of plays, not at the beginning of them, because he'll gain more yards that way. And then the other element on defense is that Harold Landry tore his ACL, so now they're so thin at rush linebacker. They just have Bud Dupree and really not much else there. So, I think that the Titans have just lost so much talent. And Ryan Tannehill's in for a regression because he's getting older and now he has worse weaponry and blocking around him. So just everything about the Titans screams we're much worse than we were last year. And then breaking down under Vrabel, the Titans against the spread are 15-21-1 as favorites. They're significantly better as underdogs. So the pressure is going to hurt them in this game because they're going to say, yeah, we should beat the Giants easily here, but they're not going to because the Giants are better than they were last year. They have a better offensive line. They added Mark Lewinsky and a bunch of other guys up there to upgrade that unit. So I think they're going to be able to block well. They could win this game outright. We saw the Cardinals absolutely crush the Titans as underdogs in week 1 last year. I don't think the Giants would do that, but they could win this game by a field goal. I don't think that they're significantly worse than the Titans. I think they're worse, but I don't think it's that significant of a gap. Definitely not enough to warrant a 5.5 point swing. I might even think about the Giants at -2.5. So we're getting some big line value here. So I'm on them for 4 units at +6. Getting the key numbers is huge there. But even at 5.5, I would still like the Giants.
Yeah, me too. So I made this line Titans -2.5. And like Vegas doesn't give out 3 points for home field anymore. It's now one. I feel like a lot of people don't know that anymore. Like it's always like the standard three. It's actually one now. So giving the Titans one for being at home, that means the Titans are 1.5 points better than the Giants, according to my number, which is very significant because you get the 3, which is the top key number, and also 4, which is a minor key number. And like, like people are like, okay, why do you guys like the Giants so much in this game? Like you mentioned the Titans regression. So you nailed that all perfectly. I'm gonna talk about how the Giants are going to be better this year. They added to their offensive line. They added a couple players, including Evan Neal, and also Gowinski from the Colts. So they're going to be better blocking wise. They get Saquon Barkley back, and he was not healthy last year. He was coming off a torn ACL. I didn't like him at all for fantasy purposes last year. I like him a lot better now. They get Kadarius Toney on the field now, and Toney was we saw him have some big games last year, and then he got hurt. And then at the end of the year, Daniel Jones got hurt too. And I think people forget that the Giants at times were very competitive last year when they had Jones on the field and also Barkley and Toney. So they went to New Orleans and beat the Saints outright. They almost won against the Chiefs on Monday night. They had a bunch of close games, and now they're going to be better with an improved offensive line. So I think the Giants are very close to the Titans. And you said it, like Tennessee as a favorite historically has not been very good under Mike Vrabel. I see this as a defensive grinder where it's going to be like 17-16, 19-17, like 20-19. Like it's going to be very close. Defensive struggle. The Giants are better against the run than the pass historically. So you should be able to handle Derrick Henry who's not going to have those 2 linemen you mentioned. So I love the Giants. I bet them for 5 units to +6 at +5.5. It'd be 4 units, but still one of my top picks of the week.
Yeah, I think I bet the money line on the Giants here, like a small bet, like a maybe 0.2 of a unit or something. Oh, well, that would be 1/5 of a unit. Okay, we're doing math here today. Yeah, I just like the idea of betting on them. It just feels like a lopsided line, so you're getting good value in all bets with this game.
Yeah, I'm going to be betting the money line too. Our proxy for the Super Contest has this rule where he's like, if you'd like an underdog, bet a quarter of what you do on the spread for the money line. That's what he usually does, and he's been a professional bettor since 1990. He really knows his stuff, so I like that advice that he gave me. All right, let's go to Sunday Night Football. The Buccaneers at the Cowboys. This line has been shifting around between 2.5 and 1.5. It opened 2.5, went down to 1, and now it's 2.5 again. So lots of changes here for both teams. So who do you like?
Yeah, I like the Buccaneers. I just think, look, I know that both teams have lost offensive linemen, and Ryan Jensen's going to be a big loss for the Buccaneers, and they're replacing 2 other starters. But I look at the guys they got in place of Jensen and Alex Kappa. So they got Shaq Mason. They have, I think, Aaron Stinney, who's been with the team for a while. And then they're breaking in a young center and Robert Hainsey. So that's a little concerning. But you look at the Cowboys side of things, they lost Tyron Smith, Connor Williams, and Lael Collins. And they've got Tyler Smith ready to replace Tyron Smith, another first-round pick who's named Ty Smith. Very odd situation there. But, we don't know how he's going to hold up a tackle. And Dak Prescott in recent years has been better when Tyron Smith has been out of the lineup. But we all remember the Adrian Claiborne game when Adrian Claiborne had 6 sacks against Dallas because Chaz Green couldn't block at left tackle. I worry that's going to happen again if Tyler Smith isn't ready to start outside. He was preparing at guard and a little bit of tackle during training camp. So that's a concern. And then, Terrence Steele on the right side was good in place of Lael Collins, but you're starting 2 new tackles and a new guard. I like the guard better, but I'm worried about the tackle play. And I think tackle play, weirdly, is more important for the Cowboys than the interior play for the Buccaneers, because I feel like the Buccaneers have better replacements. And I think the Buccaneers are going to be hungry to prove themselves, because Tom Brady's got a lot of weird questions around him right now. Like people are like, his marriage is in shambles and like he shouldn't have come back because of this. So he's got all this weird chatter around him. It's like, was he gone on The Masked Singer? And I feel like he's just like, get me on the field. Please let me get away from whatever the hell this is. So I feel like he's going to be motivated to win this game. I feel like Dallas's defense is going to regress a bit too. Their pass rush isn't going to be as strong without Randy Gregory. So yeah, I think I like the Buccaneers here. The Buccaneers aren't going to sleep on Dallas because Dallas almost beat them in the opener last year. So they're playing again. This one's on the road. So, you know, you could make a case to me that Dallas may be able to overcome the problems they have, but I feel like they've lost too much talent on offense on the line and at receiver too. They have CeeDee Lamb and then not a whole lot else healthy or proven there. So, you know, Dalton Schultz is there, but that's two players for Tampa Bay to focus on instead of 3 to 4 like usual. So I'll be on the Buccaneers here, probably for a unit or two. Just depends on how confident I am in that offensive line for the Buccaneers going into that game.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point about how Tampa's replacements are better than Dallas's replacements. So Dallas lost Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup's coming off the torn ACL, and Cedric Wilson at receiver. And you know that who they have instead, like Jalen Tolbert, Semi Fajuco, like these guys are not going to really threaten Tampa too much. Dallas's offensive line, as you said, not as good. They got Jason Peters, but who knows if he's going to be ready at all. So yeah, Tyler Smith, I don't like him starting at left tackle right away. He was supposed to be guard. So those are Dallas's replacements, but Tampa's replacements, yeah, they got Shaq Mason to replace one of their guards. Center is an issue because you know they suffered a couple injuries there, so that could be a problem. But still, with Antonio Brown gone, Chris Godwin coming off torn ACL, and Rob Gronkowski retired, that would normally be an issue. But they signed Russell Gage and Julio Jones to complement Mike Evans. They still have Cameron Brate at tight end. So I feel like they're still going to be fine. Whereas Dallas, I feel like, is in for a collapse. Still, though, like I really wanted to fade both these teams. It's kind of like the opposite of Eagles Lions. Like I wanted to bet both the Eagles and Lions. I wanted to fade both Tampa and Dallas. But they play each other in week one. But still, I'm still going to be on the Buccaneers. Like really, all Tom Brady needs to do is win this game. Like I know maybe he escapes with a 1 or 2 point victory and then you don't cover. But still, like 3 is the most likely outcome of this game, and you get that with Tampa winning. I trust Brady more than Prescott, even though Brady's 45. Prescott has had some great moments in his career, no doubt. But when he's been surrounded by a bad supporting cast, which he is right now, outside of Lamb, Schultz, and Zach Martin, you know, he really hasn't performed nearly as well. So I just trust Brady more. I'm going to be on the Buccaneers. Don't love this game enough to bet it, but maybe I would be tempted for one unit. We'll see.
Yeah, I think I'm more likely to be on the 1 unit side than the 2 unit side. The only way I'd go with 2 units is if we got reports out of practice like Tyler Smith is struggling badly, because I feel like the Buccaneers would be able to take advantage of that. But I agree with you. I kind of want to fade both of these teams because of the offensive line concerns. Just as the case with the Eagles and Lions game, the winner of this game, we're going to be able to fade in week 2 and possibly make a lot of money. So I'm kind of hoping that the Buccaneers like blow out the Cowboys and then we can fade the Bucs next week, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, can't wait for those week 2 overreactions. It's like I think week 2 is my favorite week just because of people react so much to week 1. So we're gonna have some nice opportunities. So we're gonna do our a teaser pick and survivor picks after the Monday night game. The Monday night game, Broncos at the Seahawks. This line once upon a time was Broncos -4, and now it's all the way up to 6.5. Wouldn't be surprised if it goes through 7. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I watched this rise when I was watching college football on ESPN because they'll show the lines at the bottom of the screen when they scroll through the games. And every time I looked up, the line was different. It was moving. And I'm like, all right, well, people love the Broncos. And they're right. I'm on the Broncos too here. I think that this is a weird one. You discussed this back in May. I think that the Seahawks are going to come out pretty motivated for this one, and Wilson might be distracted in the first half. So I almost like the Seahawks potentially covering in the first half. I don't know if I would bet it because I don't think that they're a good team, especially at quarterback, but I think that they could keep it close early. But by the end of the game, the Broncos are going to be pulling away because they're just so much more talented. Their defense is insanely good. like they've added so much talent on that side of the ball. Getting Randy Gregory is going to be huge for their pass rush. I know he's not Von Miller, but if he can stay out of trouble, he's going to be a really good get for them. Their linebackers are healthy. They were without their starters last year. Josie Jewell was out for a good chunk of the season. So them being healthy is huge. And their secondary is just elite. They're so deep. They have so much talent. They're going to be in great shape back there. And then you look at the Seahawks side of things, and you've got Geno Smith, who, some people in my fantasy draft were like, I had no idea that he was even still in the NFL, and he's their starting quarterback. And I don't want to hate on Geno Smith because I think he's a decent backup, but there's no way he should be starting week 1 for any team. This seems like a weird move from Pete Carroll to reward a guy who's been doing a lot of good work behind Russell Wilson for a long time, but there's just no upside with this team. Their offensive line's not great. They have some good weapons. They have good run game. They have good receivers, but they're not going to be able to get open consistently enough against this defense. And then on the Broncos offensive side of things, it might take a while for Wilson to get settled in. He's still developing chemistry with his guys, but he's going to figure it out by the second half. There's no way he's going to lose in his return to Seattle. I just can't fathom that happening. He's going to want to put on a good show and just say, hey, this is where I am now, and this is what the Seahawks are without me. It's a non-revenge game, and then I don't think things ended super hostilely for him there. But he's still going to want to beat his former team. So I like the Broncos at -6.5. I don't know how many units. I didn't really get that far in my thinking for this one. I just kind of knew that the Broncos were the right side.
Yeah, so we disagree on one game this week, and it's Saints Falcons. So it's pretty cool. It's a shame that happened early because we could have had that tension. Are we going to agree on all 16? But yeah, we're on the same side here. Like you said, where I made the point back in May, if you like the Seahawks, I would bet them in the first half because they're going to have a ton of emotion. Weird things could happen. They could have a fumble return for a touchdown, special teams. They could have a special teams trick or something. Just something strange could happen. It kind of reminds me of the Rams at the Raiders. I think it was 2019. Where the Rams were, I think they were 5.5 point favorites at the Raiders on the Monday night. It was the late Monday night game, and the Raiders came out guns blazing. They scored a touchdown right away. They were up at halftime, and then they didn't score a single point in the second half. They lost by 20. I think that's what could happen here. I mentioned earlier that there are 2 games this week where I feel like an offensive line can't block the other side. The Chicago was the first one. This is the second one for Seattle. I know they have Charles Cross. They spent the number 9 overall pick on him, and he's great right away, but he's just a rookie. He's going to be making his first start, and he's just one of the rookies playing a tackle. The Seahawks have 2 rookies playing a tackle, and they also had Damian Lewis get carted off the field the preseason. Maybe he plays, which would be kind of miraculous based on how bad that injury looked, but he may not be 100% either. And if he's out, that's just going to be even worse. So I think that Denver's defensive line should be able to handle Seattle's offense, their defensive line should be able to handle Seattle's offensive line pretty easily. And then, Russell Wilson against that secondary. Seattle secondary is no longer the Legion of Boom. They had Jamal Adams back there who can't cover anyone. And Russell Wilson knows that. He was teammates with Adams. He's going to be able to target Adams' side of the field with his talented receivers. So I think this is going to be a blowout in the end. Like I said, maybe close initially, but by the end of the game, Seattle should be able to win, or Denver should be able to win by double digits.
Yeah, it's such a mismatch. I hope that the game is closer than we think, at least early, so it's not just a Monday night blowout where we're all just kind of sitting there being like, all right, can we get this over with? Can this be over? Maybe I'll put some extra money on it just in case. But the Seahawks are going to have a real tough time against the Broncos and really any solid team this year.
Yeah, well, I don't know about you, but when I bet on a team, I just want it to be 42-0 right away. Just not worry about it. I don't want to have that tension, especially after last year when we had all those bad beats. I just don't want to experience that again.
I guess you're right. I'm saying that I want a good game, but if I bet on it, I'm not going to want a good game. I'm just going to want to be right.
That's true. Yeah, I'm going to be on a couple units on Denver. Not too crazy because something like I said before, weird stuff can happen in an emotional game. It's going to be very emotional for Seattle. So just want to stay away from that. But Denver is just so much better than Seattle. So let's get to my teaser. So for those of you who are kind of new to this, so teasers are, you bet both teams and you get 6 points. The correct way to do a teaser is to make sure you get all the key numbers, which are 3, 6, and 7. Those are the 3 primary key numbers. So you want to go through all those key numbers. I think there's some really good options this week. I think the 2 best ones are the Browns plus 8.5, going from 2.5 to 8.5, and the Jaguars going from 2.5 to 8.5. So we get all the key numbers with both teams, 3, 6, and 7. I really can't see Baker Mayfield beating like the superior team here outside of quarterback by 9 or more. And then with Carson Wentz making his first start, I don't see that happening. I don't see them winning by 9 or more either. Even if the Redskins are up big, I think Trevor Lawrence makes a comeback and maybe covers that 8.5. So that's my teaser. You can go with other options, include like the Rams plus 8.5. You can go with Ravens -1, 49ers -1. I think those are good choices as well.
Yeah, when I was eyeing this, I was looking at Ravens and 49ers. I know it's more appealing to do it this way. I love what you have here because, these games are, if the teams that we've teased don't win, then I think that they're going to at least be within a touchdown. But I think the 49ers and Ravens will both win. So getting that value and just basically being like, all right, they have to just win by more than a point. Both of them. I like them together. But like you said, tons of great options this week.
Yeah, I definitely consider both those picks too. Like I was going down the card in the order which to discuss the games. I was like, yeah, Ravens -1, that'll be in that. And then like I just kept going down. I was like, I like going up more than I do down, but that's just preference. You can go with all 4 of those picks in either way. All right, let's get to Survivor. So my Survivor pick is going to be the 49ers. I bet them early, back in early July. I just don't see how the Bears compete with the Niners. So we talked about this game. They just won't be able to block San Francisco. Like you said, the only concern is Trey Lance, but I think that might be a positive. Like I mentioned, the Niners or the Bears don't have that much film on him, and I trust Kyle Shanahan in a matchup against a rookie coach. So the Niners are my Survivor pick.
For the sake of being different and the fact that this was my choice anyway, I'm going to go with Baltimore to beat the Jets. As we talked about earlier, John Harbaugh has won before last year his previous 4 openers by an average of 36.25 points per game against weak competition. The loss last year came against a playoff team. I don't think the Jets are going to sniff the playoffs at all this year, so I think Baltimore should win that fairly easy in addition to covering the 7. And I don't think Baltimore is going to have much better options on their card than this game against the Jets. Just thinking ahead a little bit, but don't overthink it in week 1 of Survivor. Don't do anything crazy. Like, don't take the Giants, even if we like them to cover against the Titans. Like, take the good teams first. Take the risks only when you have to.
Yeah, totally agree. And the Ravens were my number 2 choice. So, yeah, definitely in favor of that. So, yeah, I that is it for week 1 picks. It's great talking, the NFL handicapping with you as always. So, do you have anything else or anything to plug?
Nothing else to say, but you can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Camenker. I will tweet my favorite picks on game days moving forward. I will also tweet pick changes. I try not to have too many of those. I only do it if I really think a pick of mine needs to change. I've been burned by them too often in the past, so sometimes I'll stubbornly stick to what I say here, but there will be the occasional pick change. And you can check out sportingnews.com for all your NFL needs. We've got a ton of content coming out about the Thursday night football game. So you can just check out all the stories on every player you could imagine ever wanting to know anything about. And I'll have a story about Josh Allen's MVP case and why I don't think he should be the favorite for it. So keep an eye out on that for Thursday. And that is definitely not me trying to stump for Lamar Jackson, but more of just an outline of why I think there are better bets than Josh Allen.
Or maybe Jared Goff, get him in there because I bet $20 to win $6,000. So hopefully that happens. I'm at walterfootball.com. We have my picks are up in case you want more analysis on each game. We're going to have confidence pool picks, Survivor picks, including the trap game, the one team I will not take in Survivor this week. Fantasy week 1 rankings are up. Charlie's mock draft is updated. My mock draft will be updated tomorrow. So going to work on that tonight after dinner. So tons of content as usual. And as I mentioned, we have a premium option now where you can not view any of the ads. The site is so fast without that. So the ads are just a necessity. We need them to fund, the hosting costs and the employees. But for $7.99 a month, you just have a super fast site and not worry about that. But at any rate, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. Jacob, it was awesome talking to you. I'm sure we'll be talking to you later in the week about who we're going to take in the super contests. But otherwise, I will talk to you here on week 2 next week.
All right, sounds good. Glad to be back, and let's have a good season.
Yeah, for sure. Good luck to everyone, and see you next week.